Hiring is tough. There's no doubt about it. I think it's always been tough. I have been in a position of interviewing and hiring candidates for over 16 years. But I would say the last 2 to 3 years, it's had a grander impact on me in my own business. I'm Jessica Krause with New Life Accounting, and this is Build What Lasts. So you're going through the interview and you don't really know what you are getting. You don't know who you are actually hiring. You do all the interviews. Depending on your process, maybe you're meeting them on the phone, maybe you have Zoom meetings, maybe you have an in-person meeting, you're flying them in even if they're out of state. You're checking on their references, you're doing your due diligence there, you're looking them up on social media, and you still don't really know the person that you are hiring because all of that is a highlight reel. They are putting on their best self for that interview. So we have to be able to control what we can control, make improvements, and do the best that we can to make sure that we are finding the right fit for the role. So you want to make sure that you have a strong process in place, that you are doing your due diligence, that you're checking out those references, even if those references are, they're still putting together the best references that they have, the ones that are going to give them the most positive review, right? But you still want to do that due diligence. Make sure that you have multiple people interviewing. And that you communicate to your team when they are interviewing that they should not pass that person on to the next interview unless they are exceptional. They are the best of the best that is getting passed on to that next interview. And maybe you even want to have some tests in place to test their skill set. Make sure their skill set matches with what they are saying they're capable and able to do. So I'll tell you a story about that testing phase. So we were looking for a high-level CFO team lead position, candidate to fill a position, and we went through a recruiter for this role. We said one of our non-negotiables is that they had to know a WIP report, have experience with the WIP report, and understand it. So we're meeting with this candidate. We're having multiple interviews with this candidate, and they are great. Everything checks out. They are passionate. They share a lot of our core values. They come from the construction industry. So they had a high-level position with a commercial contractor. And before that, they had a high-level accounting position with a residential home builder. So that all checked out. Said that they understood and knew a WIP report. So we created this test. And it was a new process. This is only the second candidate I was giving this test to. And I was feeling guilty, I was feeling bad for questioning their skill set and what they said. I like to take people for their word. And so I was struggling internally with actually giving them this test. But there was something in me that said, nope, Jessica, this is part of your process. You developed this test for a reason. You need to give it to them. So I did. And the test was giving them a WIP report and a financial statement that tied back to that WIP report. And I wanted them to tell me what they were seeing and noticing within the financials in the WIP report, just by the eye, something that looked off, any questions that they would ask about it if they were reviewing this from another staff. And the questions that this candidate had told me right away that they did not understand the WIP report and the impact that it had on the financial statements. So at this point in time, when we were hiring this position, that candidate wasn't going to be a good fit for us. And I wouldn't have known that. I would have hired that person on the spot if I wouldn't have gave him that test. Okay, so it's important to have a test to test their skills, but to also trust your gut. Make sure you're doing what you believe is right and you're following that process. Another thing about the gut thing, right, is that there were a couple candidates that we had interviewed and I didn't have a good feeling about them overall, everything checked out. They were nice and they checked all the boxes on all the skill sets that we needed and a culture fit, but there was something that was telling me not to make those hires. I wanted to also trust my team and their input. And so we pushed them through. And there was a couple of different times that it didn't work out. So now the team and myself all are trusting my gut a little bit more these days. And you should do the same. Trust those instincts. Trust the gut. That's why you're in the position that you're in. So while we cannot control everything, there are certain areas that we can control. And again, that is asking the tough questions, following a detailed process within hiring, doing your due diligence and checking those references, having a test to test their skill set, and trusting your gut. And then you're going to continue to make improvements to those processes. So as you hire more people and you're asking those questions and you're providing those tests for the skill set, you can make improvements. You're going to go back, you're going to reassess, and you're constantly going to be working on that process. It is too expensive to make these mistakes, to not go back and make improvements to your hiring process. I'm Jessica Krause with New York Accounting, and we're here to help you build what lasts.